Awesome. All right. Hello, everybody on the internet. My name is Christina. I'm with Agrarian Trust, and we're here with Cam Terry, the farmer of Garden Variety Harvest. He is the founding farmer of the Southwest Virginia Agrarian Commons, and he's going to give us a tour of the land that you all are helping us acquire right now. Hey, Cam.
Hey, Christina.
Super appreciate you being here.
Hey, everybody out there.
Yeah. Cool. So, yeah, show us the farm. Show us what's going on. Tell us all about it.
So I guess the best place to start is probably at the front of the property, right?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to turn my camera around if I can figure out how to.
Oh, I think we're having a hard time hearing you. Oh, wow. Okay, so that's the road right in front of the land. So when we say that it's an urban farm, it is like right there. Like people driving by can see you farming.
That's right. Yeah. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Wow, and I see all those cars driving by, and they see gardens then too. Like all of those people are seeing agriculture happen right there in the middle of Roanoke. That is amazing.
That's right. Yeah, this is 10th Street. You can see a school bus going by right now. So this traffic data suggests that 10,000 cars go by here on an average day. So we have an excellent frontage to be able to try to market vegetables at some point, and all kinds of event opportunities also. This is the front of the original building on the property.
Cool. And so that building does need a lot of work, right? Like a lot of the funding that we're raising is going to go into infrastructure improvements for that, correct? Oh, we lost him. I'm sure he'll be right back. We did do a test run of this before and it went okay. It seemed to have plenty of service there. Oh, hey, Cam, you're on mute. We can see you and we love what we're seeing, but we can't hear you. Thanks. Okay.
Sorry, yeah, I had a connection drop. We are as urban as we want to be, but still have connection challenges. Isn't that a surprise?
Yeah.
But this is the original building on the property. This house was built in 1898, and
wow.
this property was actually a nursery, a bedding plants nursery, owned by the Kroll family from the 1940s into the mid 90s. And they actually lived in this house, and they ran the business out of this house. And if you can kind of picture, there were some outbuildings and greenhouses all around here. And they ran that business into the 90s. And then when they retired, they still lived in the house actually until they passed on. And that's how the owner that we are getting the property from came into ownership of the property. So for the last 12 years or so, the Lick Run Farm, as that sign would suggest, has been a bit of a permaculture experiment here on the land. They have generated some vegetables and sold to local food, and they've also done a lot of community development and education programming. So they brought a lot of students onto the land and taught a lot of permaculture concepts and stuff like that. and Rick is getting up there in age and is just kind of ready to retire. And so that's how we came to this situation where Garden Variety Harvest can be in a position to take over the farming operation here.
Amazing. Okay, so you're saying that this land that you're going to be growing your business on, growing local food for the community of Roanoke, has already started the road of becoming like a community center, a place to educate others on agriculture, a place where children and schools can come and learn how to do growing and gardening.
Yeah, that's something that we want to pick up the baton and keep going with. But absolutely, that work started long before I even came to Roanoke.
Wow.
And you'll see as we kind of go throughout the tour of the land that there are some artifacts of what this land has been throughout the last century or so. The fact that it was a nursery means that we have kind of very rare pine species in a couple places. There's actually a China fir that is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 years old. And there's another couple pine trees next to the house over there. And there's also little bits and pieces up in the forest garden that I'll show you where, things got planted, 15, 20 years ago and are still thriving here on the land. And then, Rick, with his permaculture work, did things like creating this hedgerow of elderberries, right? And so these elder flowers are just coming into bloom right now. And they're really strategically planted in a place where the water kind of drains into. So elderberries are a crop that really doesn't mind having wet feet. In fact, they kind of thrive in that sort of an environment. And so, we're gonna do our best to like leave the existing hedgerows in place and kind of farm vegetables around them, because we want to create a place that's an inviting environment for all of the pollinators and all the birds and wildlife. Anybody but a deer or a groundhog, I would say, is welcome in this area.
That's funny. That's amazing. It's so unique to find this amount of land that is a green space available for agriculture in a city, and also to find one that has already had work put into it as a farm and like as an ecosystem. That's so amazing. What a unique experience and opportunity that this land is giving you and the community of Roanoke. It's so amazing.
That's right. Yeah, we looked pretty hard for other, farming opportunities in the city, and, none were quite as well developed as this was. When Rick came here, it was kind of abandoned, and there were falling down outbuildings everywhere, and there was, weed trees growing up in places. And a lot of his first 2 years here on the land were just, cleaning it up, pulling out all the trash. People had been using places as dumping grounds and stuff like that. And so, he healed this land and kind of treated the soil with a bit of respect over the last 10 years. And now we're in a position where we can kind of just plant and play in a lot of places and be able to have vegetables as quickly as possible, right?
Yeah, amazing. And so that's another question is like, so right now, Agrarian Trust and you and Garden Variety Harvest and the Southwest Virginia Agrarian Commons are all raising money to acquire this piece of land. And so how are you farming on it already? Like, how do you already have gardens there if we don't already own the land and are holding it in common?
Yeah, that's a good question. Rick asked me several years ago about the prospect of growing here on the land. So I've kind of had a standing invitation to start planting stuff here for a while. It kind of took the Agrarian Commons putting a model around that arrangement for us to really theorize exactly how that relationship should work, right? Because I wanted to make sure that if I started investing here, that my investment was secure, right? And so we knew that once we kind of came to a framework of a deal, a price that made sense to pay him for his time here, that we should start growing immediately. And so we drew up a temporary lease for me to be able to grow on this land while we're raising the money to actually pay for it. And that sort of agreement is something that I'm kind of familiar with already from the work that I was already doing in people's backyards, right? Where I draw up an agreement with somebody to grow on their space for 1 or 2 or 3 years in exchange for vegetables. Now, this is a little bit different. It's a lot more space, and we had to draw up some agreements around like electricity bills and stuff like that. But that's all it is at this point. Is I'm renting with a prospect of more long-term secure tenure right here on the horizon, pending
Okay,
fundraising.
amazing. Okay, so right now you have a short-term lease just to hold us over until we can raise the money to acquire the land and put it into the Southwest Virginia Agrarian Commons, at which point you will get a 99-year lease, which will be like secure land tenure, which means that you will know you can put down roots and grow your business and be in a place to support community with fresh food. That's amazing. I really appreciate you explaining all that. That's really cool.
Yeah, and one thing that's really cool about the way that these leases get drawn up is that it's equitable, and what that means is when my business invests in the land out of our own capital, should we choose to leave and go somewhere else, farm somewhere else, or choose to do something else for a living, those investments are paid back to me for investing. So I don't have to worry about, if we construct a high tunnel with our own money, I don't have to worry about, not being able to take it with me when I go, right? And so the equitable portion of the lease is really, really important also.
Okay, that's amazing. That is amazing. So do you want to show us the gardens that you're growing already?
Yeah, sure. So this is the vegetable
Wow.
garden as it is right now. So we started
Wow.
planting down here in early March, I would say. The first thing we planted was 2 rows of peas, and you can see our peas are just coming in now. We actually have a high school intern program that I signed on with to come and work with me twice a week, and that is the only reason I decided to plant peas. Because I surely would not be picking all these peas by myself as a one-man operation. So they actually came out and they picked yesterday for the first time, and they were really excited to see that these plants were so laden with fruit already. So yeah, we've got peas, and everything else is kind of started maturing on this side here, and we'll walk all the way to the other end and show you some of the beds that we planted today. But
Okay,
you'll see as I
are you saying that there's already, like, you're already engaging school children and like local community to come see that? Like, even though we haven't acquired the land yet, we're like actively fundraising, which anyone can donate to secure this land. That would be great at the Agrarian Trust website, but you're already engaging school children and like having them come out to the land and experience these beautiful foods.
Yeah, not only are we already engaging school children, we are in the drafting process of our second grant for a similar program. Like the community work is really important, and I'm very fortunate that the existing nonprofit that is already here on the land takes the education part seriously, and so they're helping me with a lot of that behind the scenes stuff to get programming paid for and get stuff on and popping, before we even had our first harvest out here. People were out here helping. So yeah, it's a real community effort. It's really quite amazing.
That's so cool. That is so cool. I so love hearing that.
One thing that I'm really excited about is a lot of the first plantings I did out here were some experiments in interplanting. So this first bed in front of me is both Swiss chard and cauliflower.
Oh.
And I had no idea how these two things would go together, but so far so good. And if you look real close there, the cauliflower is just starting to bud up.
Yeah, I see that. That's awesome.
So,
and I do want to say
to
anybody else listening and watching, you guys can submit questions in the chat and Cam can answer them for you if you want. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Cam.
Please do. So yeah, my farm produces over 40 different vegetables in a growing season. So it's no surprise that we have, chard and cauliflower next to fennel, next to lettuce, next to more fennel. I probably overplanted fennel. And then, lettuce. These are the last of the Napa cabbage here, next to some kohlrabi. We had a really good broccoli crop that is just coming into form now. And all of these gardens here were established no-till. So what I did is I came out and I put down a tarp in October, and they were gardens lightly last year. And so our weed pressure is a little bit excessive in some places, as you can see, but we're working on it. And we're going to just do a strategic tarping as much as possible to try to kill the weeds with the easy methods rather than cultivating heavily all the time. So it's down to about an hour a week I spend out here with a hoe, just kind of getting some of the nooks and crannies. But the good news is, you know, the soil is very healthy and we're producing really awesome crops. It's been amazingly bountiful in these first few months. I mean, look at the size of these kohlrabi, for God's sake.
I mean, oh my God, those are the biggest and best looking kohlrabi I have ever seen growing in a garden. That's amazing. And yeah, when you talk about how the soil is already, like, another great aspect of this project is that this farm was already managed using organic methods. So you're not having to wait until just the fact that the soil has already been stewarded in an ecological manner makes this even more prime farmland. And so, like, people are just driving by and seeing this. That part is just blowing my mind. Like, people are seeing this agriculture happen from the road, and wow. And they can just like ride their bicycles and come pick up some veggies. Like, this is so amazing.
That's right. Actually, that parking lot across the way there, I'm not sure whether you can see, but that's a Greenway parking lot. So the city of Roanoke has these Greenway trails that follow all the little creeks down into downtown. So you can hop on a bicycle on that Greenway, and you can be downtown in about 6 or 7 minutes from here.
Wow. Awesome.
So I really get excited when I think about the possibility of people being able to buy vegetables and walk or ride a bike away from the farm. Just kind of encouraging, you know, the use of walkable spaces. And, you know, I started this business, you know, partly because I thought it was absurd that we truck lettuce across the country when we can perfectly easily grow it at home. And you know, the logical extension of that is, you know, I can grow it here and people don't even have to drive their car to come here and get it. That's pretty exciting to me.
That is so exciting to all of us too. And that's why, that is a reason we think this is such an important project. So we are fundraising for this right now so that we can acquire this land and put it into the Southwest Virginia Agrarian Commons. And we would really appreciate the support if you could donate and contribute at the Agrarian Trust website to make sure that this farmland is preserved, that this community can always have fresh food, and not just for this generation of farmers, but for all generations of farmers to come.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's kind of, it's important to talk about this neighborhood specifically. You know, there's not a grocery store within 2 miles of this location.
Wow.
It's so people in this neighborhood, they have to drive for their groceries. And if the corner store is closer, then that's often what they end up eating instead. In fact, there's a corner store with a Chester's fried chicken right up the street, you know? So, you know, there's a lot of conversation in the city of Roanoke about why Northwest Roanoke doesn't have a grocery store. Being a historically Black neighborhood, you can, you know, we can hem and haw about what the reasons for all of that is. But, you know, I'm more interested in what the solutions are. And the solutions have not been, to this point, anything to do with grocery stores per se, because grocery stores don't see it as a place where they can have a profitable business. And so they're not really interested in opening a store here. You know, running a grocery store is a terribly difficult and dangerous thing to do if you don't think you can make a profit, because it takes so much capital investment to open a grocery store. Think about, you know, a 30,000 square foot building and 40,000 things you have to stock the shelves with before you can open. It's not easy to do. And this type of a solution where we can actually just grow the food here and hand it to people who come to the farm starts to make a lot more sense. And I hope that we can set an example and that, you know, 10 years from now, there are 10 more farms like this, in Northwest Roanoke, and we can actually start to take food sovereignty into our own hands.
So good. Yes. Oh my God. I'm so excited about this project. It's so amazing. It's having such real impact, like creating real change and like making real good happen for the future. It just feels so good. So you also like you're going to be able to expand you've been feeding Roanoke for the past 5 years already, but this land is going to allow you to expand by like 300%, right?
Yeah, that's right. Last year, the farm network was 5 different backyard plots in the city of Roanoke, and it was about a third of an acre. This property here at Lick Run is 3.5 acres in total, and I think that about 1.2 acres of that is like farmable vegetable land. And so just the flat parts is 3 times what I had last year. Now, if you add to that some of the more marginal areas that I can show you where it's like a little bit hilly or a bit shaded from neighbors' trees or whatnot, those are places where we can plant all kinds of different perennial crops. It just doesn't really make sense for vegetable agriculture. So I get really excited about the idea of being able to plant, plums and persimmons and raspberry patches and stuff like that. So that's another part of the business that I really I'm excited about expanding into, right? Because when you farm backyards, you got to be very careful about planting stuff that's going to take more than 1 or 2 years to grow out. So I've been kind of limited to a lot of salad greens and tomatoes and annual vegetables, but now so much more comes into the possible range, and we can plant stuff that's raspberries, which are really hard to get to market because they're very perishable and hard to transport. We can plant things here on a U-pick basis and let people come and pick on the farm, right? And not worry so much about what it's like to transport figs or raspberries to the market.
Amazing. So this land acquisition is going to open you up to so many more possibilities and also your community up to better options of food and eating and agriculture experiences. It's just so amazing.
Right. Can I show you something that is a little bit tangential, but is
Please.
really fun?
Yeah.
I think that our beehive is about to swarm today.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that
wow.
wild?
Wow. Yeah.
I have a friend who's a beginning beekeeper, and he brought this hive out, I would say, a month and a half ago or so.
Oh my God.
And obviously it's quite healthy because I think it's about to split off already. So I called him this morning and I said, you probably want to get over here and check this thing out.
And bring another box.
We might have a second hive. Right, get another box. Exactly.
So people are hearing about how you're working with Agrarian Trust to acquire this land and how it's going to give you this 99-year lease and this affordable, secure tenure and all this. And it sounds like people are coming to help, like they're bringing support in all sorts of ways. I mean, obviously on the fundraising side, we've got an amazing amount of contributions already. Like the outpouring of support from your community and from the national community has been amazing and really astonishing. I mean, we still have a long way to go, but it has been really wonderful to see how supportive people are. But also it sounds like there's been a lot of on the ground support. Like people have been showing up with offerings, like farm offerings, and also to volunteer, right? Aren't you getting like so many volunteers all of a sudden?
Yeah, we have a lot of volunteer capability here. We've had 3 volunteer work days so far, where we worked on some tarping and some mulching projects and a few like infrastructure planning sessions. We want to make sure that we're programming the space in a way that reduces our mowing burden, but also gives people an opportunity to take part in the planning and the planting and the harvesting, right? So yeah, we've had 3 volunteer days so far. I also have a list of 40 names who, when I asked whether or not, people would be interested in volunteering, 40 people emailed me back and added their names to a list. So
Wow.
three volunteer days so far is just the beginning, right? We're gonna have to find a way to like make sure we have enough tools on hand for people to be able to be useful and really manage those volunteer hours the best we can. But yeah, I think that sometime in the next couple weeks we'll probably put the bat signal out and see how many people want to show up, because I want to start working on prepping ground for our first raspberry patch. I guess I can take you up there where I'm planning on doing that right now.
Yeah, sure. And so, yeah, so raspberries, blackberries, like perennials is obviously something that you're like more excited about since you've not had that security in the past.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that, UPIC is something that just brings so much opportunity to a farmer to be able to market a product on site and invite people onto the farm and show them how their food is being grown. When we're involved in local food, it's not just the food we're selling a story, and having a place where people can come and pick their own food is something I'm really excited about. So here's the site of our first raspberry patch. So I think that what we'll do to start is we'll knock all this down with a mower, and then we'll tarp it until the fall, and then we'll sheet mulch it so that we don't have to weed it. And I think we can probably get somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 raspberries in that little patch there.
Yeah.
And then this section here is what we call the forest garden. So there's some old growth trees up here that are remnants of the old nursery days, and then a few that Rick planted also. That's actually a tea plant there in the middle.
Oh, wow.
And there's some really, really intelligently designed swales on the front of the forest garden that kind of just step down, you see?
Yeah.
But a lot of those swales either never got planted, or what got planted in them was kind of neglected and never took. So we have an opportunity to kind of replant a lot of the forest garden ourselves with plants that will grow food, but also nurture the soil and create like a fungally dominant area where we're supporting, wildlife habitat and that sort of thing. And I'm excited about having a nice place where we can, sit up here and have lunch, or maybe hang a hammock between those two trees there.
Yeah, definitely need to do that.
It'll be a great break room for farm employees or just people who are stopping by, right?
Totally. And so now that you mentioned that, I was remembering I've heard that you're going to use the house that is on the land, not for you to live in as a farmer, but like as a community gathering space.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the house that's on the land is really not very well designed for living in. It's a bit of a hodgepodge of extensions, and there's no real great place for a family kitchen, and it would only really end up being a one-bedroom house anyway, no matter kind of how you slice it. So I think the best way to use it is to serve the community. So we'll have a farm office in there, and we'll have a small, like, bad weather packing area in the back. So when it's too hot or too cold to wash lettuce outside, then we'll do it in there. But then the front room of the house, which I guess they would have called the living room when they actually lived in the house, is huge. It's a big 40 by 15 living room that will be great for, yoga classes, community meetings, permaculture courses, kind of whatever kind of sparks up and makes sense in there. It'll be a community room, and people will be able to rent it for space and stuff like that.
Cool. I mean, like every single aspect of this project is so inspiring and invigorating. It's just so cool to get to be a part of this. And anybody can be a part of this by contributing and making this happen for the long term. I mean, we have to raise this money to acquire the land and do infrastructure improvements. But after that, it is going to be held in the commons forever, for generations and generations to come. And I remember one quote I read. I mean, the news media has been all over you, and it's been great. I love it. But one of my favorite quotes that you had in one of the articles I read was how you wish that you could shake the hand of the farmer 5 generations from now. That was so, I love the way that you're thinking so long-term about this. Like, this land is going to benefit you and your community now, but it will be benefiting the Roanoke community forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is the stuff that legacies are made of, like really thinking ahead. Now, this land is only 3.5 acres, and no, it's not going to feed the entire city of Roanoke, but I think that establishing kind of a bulkhead like this where we can show people what is possible and set an example for others to kind of follow in our footsteps, right? I don't know if I definitely won't be farming for the entirety of that 99-year lease, right? I think that it sometimes, especially when you're growing on small acreage and backyards and stuff like that, it's hard to even think a few years ahead. But this whole process with the Commons has enabled me to really think about what it is to try to leave a lasting community impact. And I think that's the type of thing that Lick Run has the potential to do. So
cool. It's so cool, especially because the things that the person before you, I think you said his name was Rick, things that he did and everything that you're doing now is going to benefit farmers in the future too, so that they don't have to start from scratch. Right. So cool.
That's right. So I guess from here, I can show you the future of the farm.
Okay.
So we seeded a cover crop on this back portion here, which is a bit patchy and might need some revision in the near future. But this was a garden probably 6 or 7 years ago. You can see it gently slopes off that way. There's actually a pond in the distance back there that is currently dry, but we hope to restore the pond system so that we can have, a nice place to take a dip in the afternoon and attract some frogs and pollinators and that sort of thing.
Interesting.
But these 2 sections here, this grassy area in front of me and then that tarp down there in the distance, those will be the future vegetable areas in the farm. And so that kind of makes up that total 1.2 acres that I was talking about earlier.
Cool. Cool. So, and those are just like neighbors, those other houses that are next to it. Just like there's.
That's right. There's 2 neighbors here. I will keep my eye on this house here. Just sold right before we moved to the farm, and if I would have been paying attention, I might have tried to snag it up before it got bought. And then, we have neighbors all along this fence line here. So all the way to the street, I have, I think, 13 different homes that abut the property. And the neighbors have been really supportive so far. They will complain if our grass gets too high in places. So I've got to get the mower out as soon as it dries up a little bit. We've had rain for the last 2.5 days straight. And so, there are challenges that come with having so many city neighbors and what they want. But the truth is, they really want to see this place succeed. They're excited about being able to come over and attend events and get vegetables here. And so I look forward to having a relationship with so many people and maybe even doing some sort of sliding scale neighborhood CSA program where people can, just pay what they can to be able to get vegetables from the farm, and we can write a grant to make up the difference for it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Cool. Well, this is a really great farm tour. Oh, do you have more to show us?
Good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm
I
here
have
for
a couple small things I can show you. Yeah. Sure. So this field here, this is like the court of the building, right? And so we call this the courtyard plot. We planted a cowpea cover crop here just a few days ago, and it's already up and growing. I think eventually this will be a vegetable growing area also. It's very woody. There's a lot of wood chips that were piled up in this spot, so we planted a cover to try to eat some of that carbon up before we start growing vegetables there. And then the courtyard, I'm working the Harvest Collective, which is a local farming group, to kind of turn this courtyard out in a way that is inviting and attractive, but also serves the needs of the farm as far as like the flow of vegetables in and out of the field, right? So these poles right here will be a tractor barn. So we can pull the BCS and our lawnmower into there. We actually will start working on that next week. And then, yeah, greenhouse the same size as this will construct so that we'll have enough space to do all our propagation. In here right now, I had mentioned the high schoolers that have been working with me. All these plants are stuff that they have potted up to try to do plant sales. So we've got 30 kilos and the eggplants that are going to be going out next week, and they are excited to try to start making some money, because you know they realize that this farming is a business now that they're out here actually working with me. So yeah, we'll have one more house the same size as this, and then we'll just kind of plant the courtyard in a way that makes the flow easy, but is inviting and beautiful, and hopefully feeds a few people too.
Awesome. Wow, that's so cool.
And then the last feature, the space where I spend most of my time right now, this is the packing shed. I love that I can stand at my 3-bin sink and wash lettuce and watch the traffic go by, and I can see when people pull up. I love packing outside when the weather is good. You know, if we have to, we'll go inside. But I love being outside as much as possible. And my thought is that we'll set up a help yourself vegetable stand here on this porch. It's got 2 doors, one on either side, right? And we can put a refrigerator right here, and like a box, and like a self-serve 24-hour vegetables available type place. And that way, when I finish at the market on Saturday, instead of driving around to all the restaurants to try to sell my leftovers, I can just drop them off here and let the neighborhood have them, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Totally. That is awesome. I can't wait to watch it grow and to watch you just keep making it a wonderful farm and a wonderful place for the community to get their food. It's so magical.
It really is. Yeah, it's a lovely project to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this farm tour. This has been really, really awesome and really informative. And I think it's so great that people who have given to this project to make it happen get to see like the land that they're supporting and the food that's already coming out of it. It's so awesome. And so if you haven't already, please go to the Agrarian Trust website and donate and give to help us secure this land, this urban farmland that is needed in the city of Roanoke to keep feeding people fresh local produce. And Cam, you are the perfect person to be doing this. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Christina. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, I hope to talk to you soon.
All right. See you later.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everybody.